sing, 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 sing. Everybody start to sing. La-di-da, ho, ho, ho. Now you're singing with a swing.
Welcome to this special edition of Italics, television for the Italian American experience. I'm your host, Anthony Tamburri. This episode is the first in our 8th season of month-long special programming celebrating October as Italian Heritage and Culture Month here on CUNY TV. Each October, New York State celebrates Italian heritage and culture. What began as Italian Week has grown into a month-long itinerary of numerous events spanning the city, state, and country, drawing in international participants and arguably having become the largest celebration of all things Italian anywhere in the world. This edition features Joseph Sciame, chairman of the Italian Heritage and Culture Month Committee of New York, as well as Angelo Vivolo and Frank Fusaro of the Columbus Citizens Foundation. Joseph Sciame is Vice President for Community Relations at St. John's University. Within the Italian American community, he has held numerous offices, including having served as National President of the Order Sons of Italy in America. He is currently the President of the Italian Heritage and Culture Committee and the Chair of the Conference of Presidents of major Italian American organizations. Joe, welcome to Italics.
Good day.
You've been here before,
yes.
And so we're delighted to have you again.
It's another year and another year to celebrate.
It is. And this year we're celebrating something a little bit different from the past. Whereas the past, we've gone back to historical figures or historical events, the celebration of 150 years of Italy, for example, things of that sort. This year it's different. Tell us about it.
Well, in the past, we did celebrate the Caravaggios of the world and even Lieutenant Giuseppe Petrosino, a noted hero, obviously in New York City, who went back to Sicily and unfortunately was killed there. But now we turn our attention to the Italian Americans who are icons, legends in our Italian American society and in the United States of America, if not throughout the whole world. And so this year we're focusing on Italian Americans in sports. And there's a whole plethora of individuals that we could honor in any specific way. And of course, as the month rolls out, there will be different proclamation ceremonies and special events where those coordinating those events can focus in on any particular sports person, male or female, that they might want to. So we're very excited about it. And we also have gone, as you know, to a new venue. Our traditional booklet that we produced once, which was a booklet, I must say, probably 37 years ago, which might have been about 10 pages. Now that booklet last year grew to about 150 pages. And this year we've gone to a new book style. It will be an insert in a magazine called Italy, which will be a paper version going out to 50,000 places or entities or personages in New York City. And probably, you know, when you figure that a leaflet such as this will be read by 2 to 3, 4 people, you're going to be hitting perhaps several hundreds of thousands of people reading about Italian Heritage and Culture Month. So we are very excited about it.
Exactly. Let's clarify a little bit for our viewers, because you're saying it's an insert, but it's a big insert.
It's a large insert, yes.
It's 44 pages of an insert, so it's a book unto itself.
We really must thank the sponsors of the booklet. I want to pay special tribute to the Columbus Citizens Foundation. They have been incredible. And as we know worldwide, it is a very famous parade, Columbus Day, each year. And the Columbus Citizens Foundation sponsors that parade along Fifth Avenue. So once again, we'll be very excited to be part of it.
They've been actually a sponsor from the beginning.
For many years,
right? Yeah.
For many years. And in fact, we give them the honor to have the back cover, and we also have an insert full page for them. And we support them in many ways. The Italian community supports them, and as you know, they have a gala event on that Saturday night. Prior to the parade.
Right. And so it's sports legends. And of course, people immediately think of someone like Joseph DiMaggio, or, you know, other names come to mind that are Italian Americans. And now, of course, currently we have Joseph Girardi, we have Joe Torre, great managers, players in their own right, also great managers. But, you know, a number of years ago, we interviewed Danilo Piano, and so our viewers can go back to our YouTube channel and find that interview. And we spoke about women in sports. And so when I was doing some research for that interview, it was interesting. I found that one of the first major women baseball players was an Italian-American, a Betty Trezza, who back in the late 40s was one of the first Italian-Americans to play baseball. And of course, Mary Lou Retton is someone who is Italian-American and who has actually spoken about her Italian-Americanness, and people seem to forget. So one of the good things, I think, is that we're going to find, as you said, there's a plethora of Italian-American athletes, and we're going to find that there are many more than usually.
There's plenty of them, and just recently I met another icon, Luigi Carnesecca, former basketball coach at St. John's University, who's now approaching his 90th birthday in January, and going strong, and so proud about his past, and speaks constantly about the Italian-American experience, that his parents lived on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Ironically, his father owned a grocery business not that far from one of my uncle's fathers. And so he speaks about that experience and how far Italian-Americans have come, not to mention the fact how far Italian-American sportsmen and women have come. So I think it's noteworthy. Sports,
in fact, I think for many early on 30s and 40s, was a vehicle for many ethnics, and of course today it's a vehicle we see also for current minority groups, baseball, a lot of Hispanics, basketball, football, a lot of African Americans, and Italian Americans were and still are, although we don't pay attention to them as much, I guess, today, are also part of that process where sports has really been something fundamentally important also in the social realm.
Well, I think in the larger world, it's acceptable.
Yeah.
So it's non-controversial. It brings people together. And earlier this summer, we did have a game that we supported, the Italian Heritage and Culture Committee, at none other than Yankee Stadium. And it was wonderful to see our name in lights on the scoreboard and all. And it was a wonderful evening of camaraderie. And they did announce that it was an Italian-American evening. So we did make our point in terms of heritage and culture. And that's what this committee is really all about.
Now, one of the things the committee does is also collaborate with the various borough administrations, the borough presidents. This year we have 4 new borough presidents, so there's going to be a bit of a challenge just in an administrative way, I assume.
Well, it's administrative and it's educational because there will only be one borough president, and he is from the Bronx, who knows exactly the routine. And if he follows it, there's always a beautiful ceremony at the Central Park Zoo. In fact, it's in the former Lion's Den, which was created and done, the brickwork, by Italian immigrants many years ago. In Queens, we have a new borough president, and she's planning her night on October 19th, which will be a Tuesday night. And at these events, the borough presidents generally recognize Italian-American leaders in their respective boroughs. In Manhattan, as well as Staten Island and Brooklyn, we have all new borough presidents. And in fact, things will be different even on Staten Island. There's been some discussion, some controversy, but there will not be a Columbus Day parade on Staten Island. However, there will be a wonderful Italian fair at Richmond Town on Staten Island with various tables of information, talent, singing, performances. So I think it depends on how each borough president wishes to conduct himself or herself to help celebrate the theme. I don't think we worry about how they do it. I think we worry more that they do it.
And it's interesting what Staten Island decided to do. One wonders, can those outer borough parades survive against the big Manhattan parade, right? And one can say, sure, because they're local, et cetera, but we'll have to see how From Rome to Richmond, which is the title of the fair that's going to take place on October 11th in Staten Island. We'll see how that works out. Sounds exciting.
Yes.
Something different. Sometimes something different and new can ruffle a few feathers, but we'll see. We'll see how
But it also could inject a spirit of solidarity with the community by coming together and evidencing their Italianita in a different way.
Yeah.
By the way, the Borough of Queens will have its parade sponsored by the Federation of Italian American Organizations on October the 11th, and that will honor New York City Commissioner, Fire Commissioner Danny Negro. And so it's going to be really an exciting parade to honor him.
Who took over for another Italian American?
Yes, Sal Casano from Staten
So
Island.
we're still in those professions that helped sort of for social mobility, right? All the civil service professions. And in fact, you know, we at the Calandra Institute have a study we just completed on Italian Americans in civil service professions, both local and statewide. So it'll be interesting when that study is finally published to see what kind of reactions we get. What are some of the things we should look forward to this season?
I think what's interesting to me is that there are pockets and areas throughout the greater metropolitan area. So, for example, if one lived in Westchester, there's the Westchester Italian American Center that's up in Tuckahoe. It's a wonderful place, sponsored originally by the Pope family, and they have so many cultural events going on throughout the month of October and beyond. Then on Staten Island, we have events at the Casa Belvedere, which is a wonderful place on the hilltop on Howard Avenue. Similarly, on Staten Island, you have the Garibaldi Meucci Museum that is celebrating now its 95th anniversary year of ownership by the Order Sons of Italy in America, as well as the 125th anniversary of the passing of Antonio Meucci, who was the true inventor of the telephone. One could swing to any of the other boroughs to see what they're doing similarly. The Casa Italiana of NYU, which was founded by Baronessa Mariuccia Zerilli Marimo. That is a wonderful place on 12th Street in New York City, and they have continuous programs and exhibits. So I think what amazes me is the amount of activities. On any given night, you might have 3 or 4 competing for one another. And one might say, well, how is that allowed? Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We have so much in terms of our Italian and Italian American culture. We've got to do more of it. We have to inculcate the young people for that greater appreciation.
And the events are in different boroughs too.
Yes.
So they're competing in some ways, but in other ways they're not, because they're drawing on their local, very local communities. Speaking about doing more, let me ask you to take off your Italian American Culture Committee hat and put on your Conference of Presidents hat, because you're also the chair of the Conference of Presidents of Major Italian American Organizations, which is an organization of nationwide. It's not just the Northeast, as some people unfortunately tend to think that everything Italian is only in the Northeast. And this is literally coast to coast and north to south. The committee is working on a project that is going to hopefully help a graduate student complete his or her dissertation.
I think what's important is that for some 40 years, and this is our 40th anniversary year, which was celebrated in June. We meet twice a year. So in June 2014, we had a record turnout of attendees at which you were there, the Consul General of New York and the presidents of major Italian American organizations. And this was a great time for us to connect once again, but also to be involved in new activities. And for many years, the Conference of Presidents of major Italian American organizations addressed itself to concerns at the United Nations. It concerned itself with world matters. We took stands where appropriate. But in this particular issue, we had not really supported scholarship. And I believe it was at your prodding and suggestion that we see if we could get the conference to commit itself financially and morally, which it did unanimously. It was a unanimous vote. And thanks to some of your research, which I think you can expound upon more, you found a wonderful name for the scholarship. And so we're hoping that at the October meeting in Washington, D.C., we'll be able to ratify our actions and then roll out the application process in November of 2014, and then review the applications in March of 15 and award the first scholarship probably at our June meeting, 2015.
For the fall of 2015.
Correct. We have to do this. As someone who is involved in higher education and someone whose heart is always concerned about financing higher education, we can never have sufficient scholarships. and especially in the area of Italian and Italian American studies.
Right, because we really need to be in the university system where courses are taught. The hope being that eventually we can create a real sort of network of young professors who then can bring this material to their classes. We've proposed to name it after Carlo Bellini, and if you mention that name to anyone in the United States, they go, huh, who? Whereas if you mention Lorenzo da Ponte, they know who Lorenzo da Ponte was. And it's true that Lorenzo da Ponte was the first professor of Italian in the Northeast and in New York City and at Columbia University. However, he wasn't the first professor of Italian in the United States. The first professor was Carlo Bellini at the College of William and Mary, and he was a friend actually of Thomas Jefferson.
Wow.
So it was interesting. I found that out years ago. It's in the first few pages, I think, of a book called Bittersweet by Alexandre de Conde, who himself was really a political scientist and wrote a number of books on political science. But he also wrote this one book called Bittersweet, which was in the 60s and 70s. There were a number of these sort of histories that a number of writers had published about Italian American. He was one. There was a lawyer, Michael Musumano, who was another one. These books have sort of unfortunately fallen. They're lost on the shelves in the library.
We have to make sure that these
But
names...
we have to make sure that these names get out there, exactly, and that people go back and reread. It's more of a historical reading. Obviously, the Italian community has changed immensely. The notion of identity has changed immensely. Manifestations that sometimes aren't always understood. For example, the whole Guido manifestation of 4 years ago, what that created in the community, especially here in the Northeast, the discussions.
And lest that the audience think we've forgotten about women,
Yes.
we know that we speak mostly and a good deal about the first woman in the world to have achieved the doctorate, who was
yes.
Lucretia Cornaro.
Right.
And the Cornaro Award is given annually by the Order of Sons of Italy in America at its state convention.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, for any who have visited Vassar College, they have the beautiful stained glass window in their library. It's a wonderful tribute to this woman who took so very many years to achieve the equivalent of the
a
PhD.
doctorate. Right.
And that goes back some 300
17th century.
Yes.
We've got our challenges ahead of us. We have this one project that we're going to work with as far as the scholarship. What are some of the other things we need to look to address in various ways?
I think nationally it would be wonderful if we had a strategic plan as to where all of our efforts are going. It doesn't take a PhD, so to speak, to figure out the fact that as we get farther away from our grandparents and great-grandparents who immigrated to America, how are we going to hold on to what we have? There's tremendous intermarriage, not only with just other ethnic groups, but even racially. As we know here in the city of New York, our mayor, a wonderful family with 2 lovely children. And so how are we going to grapple with that and yet hold on to our Italianità? I think, and I support what you've tried to do through the Calandra Institute, through research and studies, but I think we need more programs at colleges and universities that study the Italian and Italian-American experience and keep that in the forefront. Let's not just have that as a one-liner in some book. Let's not talk about the criminality. Let's talk about the positive side. Sure, we can say that something did happen, 200 years ago, but let's talk more about what the future is going to bring. In my mind, if we had all the resources in the world, it would be wonderful to establish some significant study that could be perhaps presented by the year 2020, which would evidence where are we going. Whether we want to swallow that, that's going to be the challenge in my mind.
Yeah, well, you mentioned our mayor, Bill de Blasio, and his interracial family, and of course, Italy's changing as well, and how sort of wonderfully uncanny in the positive sense of the use of that word that he was photographed with former Minister of Integration Cecile Kyenge, who is an African Italian who married an Italian, a quote-unquote native Italian, and they have their own family. And it was interesting. There was an article, one of the many articles in the New York papers that covered it. There was one episode where an Italian reporter went up to Kyenge's daughter and addressed her as Chiara, who of course is here, de Blasio stood. So I thought that was kind of funny that the Italians weren't sort of up to date on their own sort of.
There is a certain uneasiness in first of all, we live in New York.
Yes.
And living not only in New York State, we live in New York City. So we live in one of the most populated areas of the country, if not the world. We see everybody, different sizes, shapes, colors. And one says sometimes when you walk out into the street, how am I going to understand my sister and brother there? They look different, they speak differently. It does take work.
Yeah.
It's a little different world, I think, than when our grandparents came here. I think when we read about the history of New York City, we talk about periods of time where there was one ethnic group that kind of was being focused on. But now, what ethnic group would one focus on? It's just so many.
Yeah.
So it's going to take us time, but it's also going to take us time to hold on to what we have contributed to America. We don't want that story to be lost.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the other day on YouTube or Facebook that someone was sending around in about a 10-minute video the immigrant experience and spoke about the hardships and the successes. It was just beautiful in 10 minutes to learn about it. And it pointed to the fact that so many people came from Italy and lost their children in steerage. My own grandmother did. The baby died, on that trip coming from Italy. Mm-hmm. And when you think about that, the hardship that they had, we don't see that today. We have different kinds of hardships.
There's a 4-hour PBS video coming up in February of 2015, which some of us have already seen, previewed. We saw, actually it was a final version. And there I think he does an excellent job of this arc of 100 years, sort of this trajectory of more or less 100 and, well, more than 100, 120 years of the immigrant experience. It'll be very interesting to hear the reactions of the Italian American community when they see this, when it finally airs. And then, of course, there's a companion book to it that's already been written by Maria Laurino, who's, of course, one of our more productive writers and a member of the community, the Italian American community. So it'll be interesting to see how we react to this.
Another challenge, if I might add, has to do with education. I think we have to continue all stressing it, the need to get through the high school, forget the dropouts that we used to have. I think that's abated a bit.
That has improved dramatically overall, not just for Italian Americans, but overall. And I think you're talking about the period of the 70s, the early 70s, when there was a dropout rate, not only in double figures, but the sense of 20, I think it was African American, Hispanic, and Italians were third, something like 26, 24, and 22%, which is just an abominably high rate for a dropout rate. I think the high school dropout rate in New York now is around 12% in general, and I think Italian Americans are below that. So, of course, we've done extremely well. But there are so many factors involved in that, too, because are there new immigrants? Are these new immigrants of a different socioeconomic status, right? Or the children of the immigrants of the 50s and 60s who didn't come here escaping the so-called miseria, right? The starvation in Italy, but came actually for amelioration, not for survival. Well, they brought, however, maybe an old world thinking with them. And so their children, who might be in their 30s now, if not 40s, have had to struggle some ways with the push and pull of the old world, even though their parents were, in some cases, post-World War II or born in the 40s. So it's interesting. It's a whole new, we haven't studied that as much as, as we've studied, of course, the great wave of immigration from 1880 to 1924. This is one of the new studies that I think needs to be done. What about this post-World War II immigration? We do have a project. One of our Calandra colleagues is working on a collection of essays, Joseph Shore, with a professor named Laura Ruberto, who's on the West Coast. They've gathered a series of essays on various manifestations of Italians post-World War II. So it'll be interesting to see.
And that's something that might work well for this particular month of October coming up, is the fact that all the Italian-American writers, they've increased substantially.
Yes.
And the books that are out there are quite incredible.
Yes.
And I think through Calandra, you've promoted many of these books by announcing them, and through your own press.
Right. We have, right, exactly. Calandra, we do, this dates back, I think, to the late 90s, when the late Philip Conestraw was hired as distinguished professor. One of the things I think he brought was the seminar series. And that began more with scholars, and then that morphed also into, or was born, a parallel series called Writers Read. And then that was after Phil's unfortunate death. That was then followed or later developed by our director for academic and cultural programs, and it's been going on for a long time. And we also have a documented film series. But you're right, the creative writers have been, I don't know if they're more numerous or if they're just getting more press. You know, it's interesting because when you look at the history of Italian American literature, you notice that people were publishing at the turn of the century with very good presses, you know, at the turn of the 20th century with very good presses. So you sort of wonder, you know, it's the chicken or the egg, right? What came first, the writer or the PR? Is it, you know, is it the PR? Now we're finally getting more PR. And of course, it's much less expensive to produce a book today than it was even 35 years ago. With print on demand has really revolutionized the whole printing publishing world. Mostly good. Some people will say it's too easy to produce a book now. Maybe, but that's okay. You know, the wheat separates itself from the chaff.
I see this all as a gift.
Yeah.
That the Italian American experience has been one in which we've had to learn how to negotiate our way. We've had to learn our way because we had a language barrier. And then once we got beyond that, it was the education. And then we became educated, credentialed. And that model that we have, I think, here in America is the greatest gift that we can give to other ethnic groups. Just as we have all this art and culture in Italy, I think we say that we produce 75% of all the art and culture. Is it in the world?
I think it's 60. I think our former consul general, Francesco Maria Talò, that was his mantra. It was the first thing he would always say. I think it's 66% of the world's art is Italian.
That's what Italy has given to the world. But what are we as Italian Americans going to give to our world here? And I think it's our experience that we may have come with little, but we learned to negotiate the system. And now that we've learned that well, you're seeing more of these writers, and we are getting more press. And I think that makes us happy. And that actually is something the Conference of Presidents really needs to address itself and speak more about. The fact that we have achieved. We have to recognize that. Can't deny that. Is it the end? Certainly not, because there are going to be hurdles. There's going to be friendly competition.
Well, let's hope that with our next meeting at the Conference of Presidents, it's the beginning, because we're going to be meeting soon with them. So, so we'll see. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you so much.
By. Angelo Vivolo is president of the Columbus Citizens Foundation. After a decade in teaching, he became a third-generation restaurateur and is the owner of the Vivolo Restaurant Group in New York City, which includes Vivolo's, Cucina, and Bar Vetro. Frank Fusaro is the chairman of the Board of Governors for the Columbus Citizens Foundation. He is co-founder and president of Farm Personnel, a management recruiting firm established in 1974. Frank is a former member of the Executive Committee and Board of Directors of the New York State Society of Certified Public Accountants and served as vice president of the society. Angelo and Frank, welcome to Italics.
Thank you for having us.
This is your repeat performance here.
Yes,
this is your debut on Italics as the almost new president of the Columbus Citizens Foundation. First things first, in a couple of days, we're going to have a parade up Fifth Avenue. But of course, it's not just that day. There's tons of preparation that goes on because behind the scenes is so important, yet nobody knows about it.
We start the preparation for the parade and for the Columbus celebration early in January. Actually, when the last year's parade was through and completed, we start thinking about this year. And so we started in January, really thinking about what we were going to do and who we were going to honor. And so it's been a process that happiply has gone very well. We've been very fortunate.
And the parade is the most public thing we do, and it's very important for us to talk about our culture, our ethnicity, because the Italians and Italian Americans have brought more to this country than any other country of its size in terms of art, science, mathematics, engineering, medicine, the opera, and so on and so forth. And this great culture that we have because of the great immigration experience of the poor who came here as workers is not really fully known. So that's what we're trying to do. And it's also a platform to raise money for the educational work that we do, which is critical to us.
I want to get to that, to the education part, because the Columbus Citizen Foundation gives a boatload of money away as scholarships.
A little bit over $2 million every year to elementary school, high school, and college students. It's something that we're committed to. It's our mission, and that's why the Columbus celebration is so important to us, because that is where we raise the funds to be able to give this kind of opportunity to young people.
I wanted to mention that because people see the glitz and glamour of the Columbus Day Parade, and they see they may or may not know the honoree, depending on who it is, but they see, of course, Maria Bartiromo, they see Joe Piscopo, they see other well-known people who are marching, etc. But they don't realize that this weekend, because it's really a weekend that begins Wednesday, Thursday, depending on the year to year, right, and goes through Monday, is the main source for all this philanthropy.
Yeah. That and most of the money comes from the membership itself. We have an Adopt a Scholar program that's raised $12–13 million over the years. That's based upon the generosity of the members themselves and the friends of the foundation. It's actually through great grand marshals and honorees and the work that they do, combined with the generosity of the members. No member is, goes unasked. And
sure.
They have been very, very generous in their endowing these scholarships.
Scholarships are very important to us. But just as important is the fact that we are trying to show these young people the great contributions of Italian Americans, and we're trying to extend to them a feeling of family, that they are supported by us and that they have an obligation to cherish and fulfill the great culture and heritage that has gone on before them. I mean, we all are successful because we're standing on the shoulders of other people.
Right.
And this new generation, we want them to stand on our shoulders and then go forward to have other people who will be standing on their shoulders someday. So they're the future leaders, and we want to give the best example possible to these young people, and that's part of our program, part of our mission.
When I address and have over the years, as Angelo does now, address these kids, I ask them, what would you do with $25,000, $50,000? Would you, buy a new car or go on vacation? I said, these members that you don't know have chosen to give that to total strangers, you. And while this is a gift to you, it's figuratively a loan, because we expect you to come back, become members, stay with us, and do this for someone else. And we have many members now that did receive scholarships many, many years ago.
It's a type of either pay it forward or a giving back, depending on how you look at it. Yeah.
And as Frank said, we actually had one recipient who came back to be a member and was a board member for a while. And we have other recipients who have come back and are on the same committees that gave them the opportunity. So it's what Frank's saying is very true, and that's our goal.
And our giving has gone beyond that. We gave $500,000 to reinstate Italian as an offering as the AP programs across high schools. Without that AP program, the culture, the language would really suffer a major blow.
Without the $500,000 from the Columbus Citizen Foundation, maybe another organization might not have given what it gave. If memory serves me well, I think you guys were the first to come up with it.
We were the first ones to commit and maintain our commitment, and we've given over the years over $1 million to the military. Most recently, Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund to help fund psychiatric centers around the country. Italians, probably the biggest ethnicity in World War II. That was taught to us, that we have an obligation to these people that volunteered to put themselves in harm's way. So we've done that, and when we've helped the Cardinal, the restoration of St. Patrick's Cathedral, they came to us, and so we have a lot of things going besides, and education being the cornerstone.
Right. But you've also stepped outside of Italian, Millennium School.
High School.
Millennium School in the shadows of 9/11. At that time, we were the first group to be asked to continue and to do our Columbus Day Parade. And that year, we gave $1 million to the restoration of this school downtown. So was a proud moment for all of us.
The bottom line is, listen, we're trying to teach us to do the right thing. We were blessed, and so blessed as you were, and Angelo and I was blessed to have this heritage, to give us, and our parents wound us up and sent us out. They educated us and said, drop us a line, right, Ange? Let us know how you're doing, which is the best gift you can ever have.
Let's talk a little bit about the history of the Columbus Citizens Foundation, because people don't know. If they may know, it's this organization that runs the parade.
Generoso Pope started the foundation. It wasn't a foundation, it was a committee. And he was the initiator, along with other prominent Italian Americans at the time, and they had the Columbus Day Parade. But over the years, obviously, it's evolved. It's more than the committee, it's a foundation. And our goal, as Frank said, is philanthropy as well as espousing our great culture and heritage to not only young people, but to the world. We believe that through our work and our example, that we're the best antidote to things that are seen and we don't believe in on the cable stations, not this one, of course, but others. So this is what we do.
Speaking of the things on the cable stations, I think that you have been quite reasonable with regard to reacting to them.
The problem with these shows is that it's what the people want to see, okay? And they're very inexpensive to make. If you talk about a sitcom with a popular, it could be millions per episode. This costs nothing.
Right.
And they feed this voyeurism with the American. And so it's very difficult to take them off the air. But our job is not to take them off the air. Our job is to show what the true Italian culture is all about. Anyone who's never been to Italy could never understand quite the same how that engineering, when you see the Colosseum, I love to go to Rome and I look at the Colosseum. This stadium was 400 years old as an active stadium. It had a canvas dome. Okay, it had water brought in from the Pyrenees Mountains 300 miles away. They could have boat battles there and float. Imagine the engineering 2,000 years ago to build that. And you go to St. Peter's and go back to the Colosseum. It was wrapped in Carrara marble that was quarried in Tivoli, 30 miles away. They dug a canal because there was no way a beast of burden could carry that in. I mean, these people had genius, and they gave us the opera, and they gave us the art and science. Where is that on TV instead of watching Mob Wives or Growing Up Gotti? Those shows are running out of steam now, and now we're going into the most moronic reality shows. But
I'm more basic than that. I believe that the everyday Italian American, the husband and wife and family that goes to work every day, is a good citizen, believes in God, believes in what they're doing, gives great examples to their children. That's the best thing for our ethnicity. The positive images that the everyday Italian American does. The hard work that he does raising his children, raising their children, and the children carrying on the great culture and heritage that we have. And that's an everyday thing, and that's today and that's for the future. And hopefully the young people that we help through our program will carry that on and be a great example, and people will look at that and not look at the other things. And that's really my personal view on our real achievement and our real success.
The banner for a lot of this is the Columbus Day weekend. Right? So let's talk a little about the weekend. The weekend starts, it's a weekend, so it's not just Monday, and it starts depending on year to year.
This year it's going to start on Thursday at Gracie Mansion. We're going to have we're going to present the Grand Marshal, who is Frank Bisignano, and the honorees Frank D'Amelio, Richard and Barbara Niclario. And then on Saturday is our gala at the Waldorf Astoria, the wonderful gala that we have done for this 70th, I believe, right, Frank?
70th year,
And then on Sunday, there's the laying of the wreath at Columbus Circle, where we honored the public servants. And
you do that together with the National Columbian Association.
Exactly.
Uniformed firefighters of police and sanitation.
And then Monday we have the Mass at St. Patrick's Cathedral, which is always spectacular. I probably one of the things that I enjoy most personally. It's a wonderful Mass. And then followed by the greatest Columbus Day parade in the world, I think. Frank has run the parade several times, and then also, of course, as president, he's overseeing the parade, but I think we have a great guy, a leader, Alfred Catalanato, who does a terrific job.
He's been doing it for a while, right? I remember because I've been doing this for about 7 years, and we come and I remember him, from the beginning.
All the committee chairmen work very hard, but Al puts in so much time that it's incredible how he does it.
Well, we've made a shift. We've had, as Grand Marshal, every celebrity you can imagine, Frank Sinatra, Sophia Loren, and so on and so forth. But we've kind of changed it. We're now honoring what we consider to be real heroes, starting with Ken Langone. Ken Langone wasn't supposed to go to college, according to his headmaster, but yet he went to college. His parents mortgaged their home and gave, $250 million to NYU. That's a real hero. Okay? And then we went to Maria Bartiromo, who was a great fundraiser for us and a great role model for women and so on. Joe Plumeri, same thing. You go to a hospital in New Jersey, you'll see a birthing center. You go to the Ronald McDonald House, built by Joe. So these are not only the role models, but they're the real heroes, okay? It's not that they became famous because on TV or something, portraying someone else. These are the real heroes, the real examples of what we had. Joe Perella, Frank Bisignano. So the last 5 years, people question, well, why are these people? Because they're out there, and they have done so much for the community, okay? We talk about the 1%. When Ken Langone financed Home Depot, 3,000 people that ran the registers, that stocked the shelves, that brought your stuff to the car became millionaires. That's what we're supposed to do, and that's what these people do. So they're the people we honor this year. Frank Bisignano was that guy, former co-COO of JP Morgan Chase, now at First Data, very philanthropic, all sorts of charities. That's what we're portraying. And these are the kind of people that we consider to be the real heroes. And they're out there pitching for us and pitching for our kids. And the next Joe Plumeri or Ken Langone is going to come from that group of 500 kids that we're taking care of.
What are some of the challenges of getting a Grand Marshal, or because I know there are people who just don't want to be in front of the camera, don't want to be in the spotlight, whatever. It's a spotlight. It's Fifth Avenue. You walk, it's legendary. It's in the song, right?
It's 3 hours on WABC.
From
12 to 3 o'clock on, on the second Monday of October 13th.
This year I was very blessed. My good friend Joe Plumeri had made a recommendation that Frank Bisignano he thought would be a great Grand Marshal, and boy was he right. And Joe is just an outstanding guy. He is, to meet him is to love him. He's just a terrific guy, and he really brought Frank Bisignano, although Frank was a friend, the former honoree, member of the foundation, and he's going to be an outstanding Grand Marshal. And then the honorees, of course, we're very proud of. Terrific people, every one of them. It's not easy. You're right. You have to get the right person who believes in the cause, who is committed to our mission. And fortunately enough, as Frank said, we've been lucky, really blessed over the last 5-6 years with the kind of people that have committed. Not to take away from the people that were there before them. I mean, we've had great people all along over the years. It's just that our commitment has been so great now with education and giving scholarships that we're challenged every year to raise enough money to maintain the scholarships that we're committed to. That's what's happened over the last 5 or 6 years, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger, and we've gone along with it. But as I said, we've had great Grand Marshals over the years that were really with spectacular people.
We have a great broadcast partner, WABC.
Yes.
IMG does the production. They're wonderful people. You got police, fire, sanitation. You're doing a 3-hour live TV event in the middle of the the largest city in the country. All the moving parts and so on, and security and the politicians, and getting everybody through, and the kids, and getting everybody fed, and everybody in the right place, the right time. It's daunting, but it works.
We have, as you said, Maria Bartiromo and Joe Piscopo. But Maria is just an incredible human being. She's a member of the foundation. She's been committed to the foundation for, I don't know, about the last 15 years in terms of doing our broadcast.
At least.
She's just a wonderful person and very giving. And she'll tell you that every year, no matter where she is in the world, she's going to come be in New York City for the parade. So we can't. And Joe Piscopo.
Great counterbalance because he's Jersey Joe.
Yeah, Joe Piscopo is a great singer. People forget about that. He's a great singer.
He did.
He does the Frank Sinatra show. That's wonderful.
He did about a 12-week thing in Atlantic City a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I felt obligated. Let me go out and watch him. And the guy, he plays 5 or 6 different instruments.
Yes.
He does the impersonations.
Yes.
He sings, and he really relates to an audience. So he's terrific. And
I saw him
Maria's
a number
the
of
best.
years ago do a Frank Sinatra set. He did like 45 minutes of Sinatra. It was great. It was wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
He now has a hugely successful radio show every morning.
Oh, that I didn't know.
Yeah,
Oh,
6
yes,
a.m.
yes.
to 9 a.m., 9:70 a.m.
Well, there's
come any
something
nicer
else,
than
too,
that.
that happens that people don't realize, and that is on the red carpet, there's entertainment.
Right.
And among the entertainers, there are some people we would all perhaps recognize. But there are also some young talent that you've had up there. And last year, you had a graduate student from Queens College who's doing an MA in jazz, Simona De Rosa.
Yeah, she
I
was
remember she
wonderful.
was up there.
Yeah, some excellent
And she was
kids.
so jazzed about being up there, singing at the Columbus Day Parade. And she's a young woman who came to the United States from Naples to do her master's in jazz music at Queens College.
I think one of the people that performed on our stage as a teenager, who's very well known today, internationally known, is Stephanie Germanotta, who's a terrific young woman, and of course, professionally known as Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
And she's right now endorsing the rights of young people who are abused and who are challenged. And so she's living the Italian tradition, trying to help young people.
We got to get her back to the parade.
Why not?
Something like that.
Absolutely.
Got to get her back to the parade. That'll get you a few more younger people there on the sidewalks.
It's all labor of love.
Parade.
It's all a labor of love.
Yeah, you mentioned the people who have gotten scholarships and have given back, and I'm sure there are other stories too of people who perhaps we know today that.
That march in the parade will always come back, and it's part of how we were brought up. It's part of our culture. We were taught to give back, and anyone who becomes successful and doesn't, and forgets where they came from will lose sight of where they're going.
Yeah.
So the people that we mentioned, the Langones and Palmieris and Maria and so on, they all have that one thread in common. Mm-hmm. They remember where they came from, and that is the greatest gift, because you can appreciate how lucky Angelo's been and I've been. We both grew up in basically the same neighborhoods in Brooklyn and so on. To come out of that and to become successful it's a joy, and so much of that is based upon the values that we were given, the family value, do the right thing, education, be loyal to your friends, and so on. So much of that is at the core of our success, and that runs through all these grand marshals that we've had. That one, thread that they don't forget where they came from, and they know how to take care of people.
Yeah, Columbus Citizens Foundation has a paid staff, but a lot of this work is done volunteer. Right.
Yes, the members volunteer to be on the various committees, whether it be the journal committee, the dinner committee, the parade committee, and so forth. And it's all membership who come to volunteer their time, their energy, their efforts, their money to make this the success that it is. Yes.
Angelo didn't know what he was getting into. When we have 600 members with 3,000 opinions, and it all falls on his shoulders to deal with that.
I've been a member of the foundation. I think I joined when Frank did 27 plus years ago. And as I said at one board meeting a number of years ago, I said I've been on the board about 18 years over the course of time under 6 presidents, but I never knew what it was going to be like to be the president of the foundation.
It is a labor of love.
Yeah.
It's a labor of love, absolutely. It's an honor and it's a privilege, but it is a labor.
Yeah. So you did 2 terms as president?
There's 2 terms maximum, 2
Which is
years
2
each
years
term.
each.
2 years each. So I did 4 years, and Angelo's finishing up his first year in that role. If you're serious about it, as Angelo is, I've been in the Lou Tallerini has been, and so many. It is a labor of love. It is a second job. Everything that we did for the founders, I think Angelo was, we've always done in the evenings, meetings and so on. So when you're president, it's consuming a nice part of your day. So you really have to be.
But you're fortunate that the business in which you can allow you
to to walk over to 69th Street and go to the foundation and meet with whatever needs to be done. But it's, as Frank said, it's a labor of love.
Yeah.
It's a tough act to follow. Frank was the president prior to me, and he followed Lou Tallerini, and Lou followed Larry Oriana, and prior to that was Ambassador with Charles Gargano. With every president, we've taken another step forward. It's not easy to follow the footsteps of my predecessors, but I'm trying my best.
We have a terrific website, columbuscitizensfd.org, citizens plural, fd.org, and it explains all that we do. We have 600 members, and we're always interested in people who have a passion, that are interested in membership. You know, call our executive director, David Yomarini, talk about the obligations and so on and so forth. But that website contains tremendous amount of information. Also, we're looking for more and more applicants for the scholarships that we have. It is need-based. So we want to get the money to those that need it the most. And you can apply on our website for those scholarships. There's an earnings criteria. That's the first bite of the apple for consideration. But we want to get the money, that $2 million a year, to the right students, those that really need it, those that need the help, those that have the capacity to get a great education but not the means to afford it.
Right. We picked up an old practice at Calandra. Before I got there, there was a scholarship booklet, and then it sort of fell by the wayside for whatever reasons. And now we've picked it back up again, and we actually made it electronic, and the booklet is both electronic and paper, so that people can go to our website, and your scholarship is in there among the other scholarships that are open, you know, to the public.
And this year, we're going to start that application process as early as November.
Okay.
So that people who are deciding where they want to go and what they want to do can start that process with their application once they go online to see it, so we can help.
But these are scholarships, all grades, right?
Well, at the high school or college level, it's for incoming freshmen at both levels. Okay, it's important to note that because it would get too crazy if we sophomores or juniors. So anyone in the 8th grade going into high school, anyone a senior in high school going to college of some Italian ethnicity should apply. And grammar school, it's open to whatever years. Okay, but. Apply again, columbuscitizensfd.org, and all the information is there. And if someone out in the audience wants to make a donation to our scholarship program, that'll be wonderful too. We're always looking for that. And 100% of the money, I mean, that we bring in goes to either scholarships or the other philanthropic work that we have. You know, Angelo knows experience. I went to Italy. We went to L'Aquila to present a $250,000 vehicle in the earthquake relief. We went on our own dime. You know, not even to take that money and take a week to go to Italy and so on and so forth. That's the way that we're structured. I mean, so all the money that we get is going to filter down to one of the philanthropic means that we have, so we're very proud of our foundation.
And all this is going to begin in the next few days at the great weekend, the Columbus Day weekend. Thank you all for stopping by.
We're looking forward to seeing you at the parade.
We will be there. Italics will be at the parade.
Great,
we'll be running up and down at various parts. So.
Absolutely.
Good.
Wonderful.
Okay. Thank you,
Anthony.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed this special episode of Italics. For more information on Italian Heritage and Culture Month events, go to italyculturemonth.org. Tune in to our next Italian Heritage and Culture Month special, airing October 16th. I'm Anthony Tamburri. Arrivederci alla prossima puntata.
Sing, 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 sing. Everybody start to sing. La-di-da, ho, ho, ho. Now you're singing with a swing. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do- Yabadot,